Welcome back to Midnight Narratives. I'm your small-town Aussie host, and tonight's story is about a man who has become one of the most controversial figures in the country. His name is Dezi Freeman. Some people say he was a hardened sovereign citizen, part of a dangerous anti-government movement. Others believe that label was slapped on him to make him look worse, to strip away sympathy and to frame him as something bigger than he really was. The truth, like always, sits in the shadows between fact and framing. To understand the accusations, you have to know what a sovereign citizen is. The ideology is messy, but the core idea is simple. They don't believe the government has any authority over them. Courts, cops, even the laws of the land, all meaningless unless they consent. They file bizarre legal paperwork, refuse to recognise driver's licences. When someone decides the law doesn't apply to them, every encounter with authority becomes a potential battlefield. So why did people say Freeman was one of them? Well, there are clues. In court, he railed against police, calling them Nazis and Gestapo. He once even tried to have a magistrate charged with treason. He represented himself in legal battles, refusing to accept rulings. When his driver's licence was cancelled, he fought it tooth and nail, not by the rules of the court, but by rules he seemed to make up on the spot. These aren't isolated outbursts. They line up almost perfectly with what experts describe as sovereign citizen tactics. He lived far from the city, tucked away in a remote property, a lifestyle often linked with people who want to escape government control. Neighbours described him as angry at authority, and investigators later found messages where he talked about losing his licence and how it felt like war against the state. Legal scholars and police experts came forward, saying Freeman was textbook sovereign citizen, a man whose entire life had been shaped by rejecting authority. But here's where the story gets tricky. Labels like sovereign citizen carry weight. They turn a man into a symbol, and symbols are easier to fear than complicated people. Some in Freeman's community claimed the label was being weaponised, used to vilify him, to paint him as more dangerous than he might have been. The truth is, the sovereign citizen movement is a broad, chaotic mess. Not everyone who rants against the police or files odd legal paperwork is part of it. Some people are simply bitter, isolated, or angry at the system without subscribing to a formal ideology. And in Freeman's case, there are questions. Was he a true believer in the sovereign citizen cause, or was he just lashing out, crafting his own twisted version of rebellion after years of run-ins with the law? Media outlets had every reason to push the most sensational version of the story. Sovereign citizen makes headlines. It grabs attention, but it also simplifies a man whose life was complicated, messy, and deeply conflicted. In the end, we're left with a man who certainly looked and sounded like a sovereign citizen. His actions matched the pattern, his words lined up with the beliefs, but whether he truly lived by that ideology, or whether the label was just a convenient way to box him in, we may never fully know. What we do know is this: when people stop believing in the rules that hold society together, when they decide they answer only to themselves, the results are almost always tragic. And that's the story. Was Dezi Freeman a sovereign citizen, or was the label used to make him seem worse? Maybe it was both. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed tonight's dive, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Midnight Narratives, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next story. Until then, I'm your small-town Aussie host, signing off. Stay curious, stay safe, and good night.